I am Christ. I am disciple. For those of you who don't know who I am, and today I'm going to discuss the title that you see there um, very briefly, because after listening to 4KO's channel today, I'm pretty assured that what I'm about to say will make sense to a lot of people. So let's get into it. I start off with a piece of scripture. Matthew chapter 4, verse 4, verse 1, all the way up, verse 4. So Matthew chapter 4, verse 4, right? It goes like this. When Jesus was led out into the wilderness by the Holy Spirit, he went there to be tempted by the devil. For 40 days and 40 nights he ate nothing, became very hungry. Then the devil came and said to him, "If you are the Son of God, change these stones into loaves of bread." And Jesus told him, "No. The scriptures say, man doesn't live by bread alone, but on every word of God." So I'm going to leave it right there. Now, I want to talk to you guys about what we're going through and this season that we're in. First, I'll start broad and then I'll come in. Start broadly. We're living in a world where artificial intelligence is being utilized on a very grand scale. In fact, Google AI right now is capturing data on this very stream that I'm doing here on YouTube. And AI has the potential to monitor multiple things and get all the details of it, and know all the details of something simultaneously while dealing with all the details of something else. So AI is able to multitask in gathering information. Unlike human beings like ourselves, where we can't do that. AI is not limited to some particular location or place, but the internet, the vast expanse of the internet, AI has all that information available to it right now, and constantly getting streamed new information. And the thing about it is, AI is developing and formulating, and with networks, can do searches for us now. So when you go Google search, AI is what's doing the search for you. When you do do digital art, AI can do the art for you. Storyboarding, movies, etc. So human beings are becoming replaceable. The gentleman who used to play Pee Wee Herman has died. He died the day before yesterday, the 30th of July. His name was Paul, can't remember his surname right now. And he talked about his digital likeness being sold off to these companies so they could continue the Pee Wee Herman story. We've seen wondrous digital effects with movies like Avatar. We've seen digital doubles used in movies like Shazam with Wonder Woman, even in Superman movies and so on. Technology is taking over. And in the age of AI and technology that's taking over, humanity is finding itself in a situation where we're becoming replaceable, very replaceable, because of course the technology can do certain things, certain tasks better than human beings can. It makes us question our humanity. It makes us question, what are we really about? enter this temptation. Jesus was led by the Holy Spirit into a wilderness to be tempted of the devil. Let me rephrase that in the context of the world today. You and I, if we're people who want to enlighten people in goodness, we find ourselves a lot of times in a wilderness experience where in this particular world with AI, technology, even now, we find ourselves marginalized. We find ourselves isolated because the message that we have seems outdated. We go into the wilderness where nobody necessarily shares the opinions that we have. And we're tested on it. But we're not just tested like that. We're tested where we're supposed to be the weakest. Jesus at the time was very hungry when the devil tempted him. Turn these stones into bread. You're going to be asked to compromise who you are, to adapt in this world. More and more, the people who are controlling things are trying to get a vice grip on humanity. They're trying to erode the difference between males and females, the role of a man and the role of a woman. They're trying to blur that line. They're trying to automate and replicate and imitate marriage in various forms. They're trying to unify the genders and gender roles and make them all one thing. It's trying to do the same thing with particularly sexuality. We live in this kind of world. And the value systems that we try to bring to this world seem archaic. In fact, as of recently, there's a whistleblower on Capitol Hill who has been speaking about aliens and that they are present in the world. Evidence for it has been hidden from us for 40 years. How does someone who says they're spiritual, how does someone who says they believe in Jesus or in biblical truths, how do we come to terms with these things? We're challenged, and these things will challenge us. We will be put to the test. And so, as a result of that, in this world where all reasoning and all thinking may be seen as archaic and outdated, when we come and be tested, turning stones into bread, compromising our belief systems, I ask you this: will you be able to stand and say, the scriptures say that I don't live by physical things I see, like money. I don't live by rewards and awards and possessions. No, I live by every word that proceeds out the breath of God. And you go on doing what you were doing. In this world, they try to buy you out. They'll try to, when you look at Hollywood with the strikes, they will try to compromise you. But you have to keep your core. Even if you slip up and you fall, you get back up and you keep going. We need principled people in this world today. People not afraid to say what they need to say. Just watching the Ice Cube interview. Ice Cube said it so correctly. People are afraid to speak their minds now. The world's getting more policed. The world is getting more, even though it's a big world out there, it's getting more connected and smaller. And the people who are causing these connections are controlling what passes through the connections, the gatekeepers, as Ice Cube kind of said. I'm saying all of this to say to you, don't compromise what you believe because pressure's put on you to compromise. It's better you die believing what you believe than having to live a compromised life. All right, so let's get into it. All right, Guys, I don't have a link for you guys to come in as guests. I was testing it out on YouTube to see it, but it changes the profile picture. So instead of having a landscaping, which is what I wanted today to talk with you guys, it ends up being portrait, and I don't want portrait today. But I guess it's portraits because you would have multiple guests in there, and now we can use it on YouTube. So the same thing we can do on StreamYard, we can do now on YouTube. Anyways, man, let's talk about what my title and profile is saying. Stop it, Warner Brothers. Stop it, Warner Brothers. What you're doing isn't working, and you can't blame Zack Snyder. Let's go into it in detail. So let me get my other phone, and we're going to chop it up. Don't forget to smash the like button. That really does me a favor. Not much of a favor, but it does something. Let's get to it. First of all, I just want to say happy Emancipation Day to those people who celebrate emancipation. All right? For those of you, emancipation is when the slaves were freed in countries like my country. Slavery was abolished and the slaves were freed. So happy Emancipation Day to those who are celebrating Emancipation Day today, which is August the 1st. It's a brand new month. I will be doing a stream tonight, so those of you guys who want to come on as guests and so on, I'll be doing one tonight, okay? All right, so let me start off by saying I was watching at 4KO's channel, which is growing. It's doing good. And 4KO expressed how, the public isn't really watching at the DCEU. I call it DCEU. I don't call it the DCE. The DCU. I don't call it the DCEU because I don't believe that this is connected to the movies before it. I think they basically did a pivot, a tremendous pivot with Justice League 2017. And from thenceforth, they haven't changed. The movies have been all one kind of movie. And we actually had a discussion, and there was actually an article in the Washington Post, which was really enlightening about that. But anyway, what I want to say to Warner Brothers Discovery is the movies that you're putting out are not going to attract an audience that you want to see your movies. This is DC, it's not Marvel. Okay? I'm not going to say the usual things I say. I'm just going to speak facts. You've had 6 DC movies that have flopped one after the other in sequence. It started with Birds of Prey. Then it was Wonder Woman 84. Then it went on to be, I believe, the Suicide Squad. Then Black Adam. Then we had Shazam 2. And then we had The Flash. All of those movies flopped at the box office. With other than Black Adam, which didn't probably cost you as much money, all the other movies cost you money to have put out there. It's better you just never did the movies. The question is this. You canceled Batgirl, which was a smart move in my opinion, because Batgirl was probably going to be the same quality as these movies that were coming out. Okay? So I'm happy you canceled Batgirl, and shout out to Abdi and DeLuca. They were in charge at the time. And you could tell that they wanted quality, and they were trying to push for Constantine, and you could see they're trying to push for movies that looked, even under Abdi and DeLuca, we got Black Adam. And Black Adam was a tremendous improvement from what probably would have come out if James Gunn was in charge, for example. The thing about Black Adam, and I'm sure they removed a lot of stuff from Black Adam that was cringeworthy, and I'm sure Black Adam was supposed to be a rated R movie, actually, according to The Rock. The thing with these movies is they're being tampered with quite a lot. But quite frankly, nobody's interested in these movies because the tone of the movies. You see, when you throw out a trailer, we see what kind of tone movie you're going to put out. And when we realize this is going to be another comedy, because you've had a series of comedy movies, right? Birds of Prey was supposed to be this kind of comedy, funny movie. It was a bit graphic, but it was mostly funny. Wonder Woman 84, though it wasn't supposed to be funny, it ended up being funny because it over dramatized, the action and stuff was just not, it was just completely, you had to throw away your belief system and just go into disbelief mode. The Suicide Squad, too many jokes, and the jokes were not funny to me. They were cringeworthy. Then we go to Shazam, another one of those funny flick kind of things. And the humor didn't hit with me because obviously, and I'm sure several other people, in fact, the humor sort of made us cringe when we think of what kind of fun, what the studio is doing. It's making fun of black people and fun of women. And I'm not cool with that. All right, I'm not cool with that. And you'll say, well, he was touchy. Blah. No. The way how this universe started, right, wasn't Marvel centric. In fact, again, I'm going to say this to the studio. When you look at the history of these movies, whether it be the Batman franchise, and what were the Batman movies that were just hated by the public? The movies that were hated in the Batman franchise by the public were the movies where you decided, we're going to make them happy, we're going to make it bright, we're going to make it funny, we're going to make it fun, right? You do that to a Batman live action movie, you get the response that you get. Y'all, then Warner Brothers fired all those people, did a pivot. Some of the people remained back, did a pivot. Christopher Nolan went serious. Christopher Nolan went, realistic, and boom. Made $1 billion. The first comic book movies to make over $1 billion was The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises, right? And then you go with Zack Snyder. Continues it. There's some success. Yes, there's an attack because, there's the Marvel Universe there. So there's an attack in-house and out-house because there's some disgruntled people in there. But at the end of the day, Man of Steel made money. BVS made money. As Mr. Greg Silverman correctly said, these movies made money. Okay? But you decide, we need the critics or whatever, and you pivot again back to the very thing that has always been flopping. Green Lantern flopped. Superman Return flopped. Okay? These movies flopped. They didn't make no money. You could have had all the great critical ratings, right? You had the great critics. Critics were behind it. Good movies. Blah, blah, blah. They still flopped. The audience wasn't interested in them. They didn't come to see them. Right? Because you wanted to be bright and sunny and it's got to be hopeful. It doesn't work when you try to do superficial things and you think you're going to get the kiddies in there. And you can tell when a studio has taken over a movie. Okay? After BVS, y'all tampered with Suicide Squad. Dave Ayer still hasn't seen this movie with the forced jokes and the stuff. Studio Squad, it made money, yes, because it was riding off of BVS. But at the end of the day, the Suicide Squad, which was your first, you tampered with BVS, but you also tampered with that. But you didn't learn your lesson. You thought, we got success. Yeah, look at that. But the Suicide, we're going to see because the Ayer cut's going to come out. And if the Ayer cut makes much more money than the original Suicide Squad movie that y'all put out, it's going to say volumes. Wonder Woman comes out 2017. Okay? It is somewhat tampered with. We all know this. Patty fought. She got what she needed to get in the movie. The movie was a success. Right? And y'all thought, it's like a Marvel movie. I heard all kinds of stupid stuff. But at the end of the day, it was from a woman's perspective. And it was great that it was a woman director. Right? Because we saw things in that movie we never saw before. The key to movie making, in my opinion, if you're going to deal with DC, is you got to enlighten people in ways they haven't been enlightened before. Open their eyes to things their eyes are not open to. That's the whole point behind DC. At least in terms of movies. When we saw Batman 1989, no one had ever seen Batman in that live action. Batman had always been funny and and Tim Burton came with something different. Unique, novel. That's why he was When Christopher Reeves and Richard Donner brought Superman to the screen, this was the first time people had ever seen it. There's something about novelty. There's something about doing a unique story, about giving a unique perspective, not the same recycled, rehashed nonsense we always used to, that makes something fresh, which is why people come to see it, because now they're seeing something they didn't see before. They're seeing an angle and a perspective they haven't seen before. It's enlightening, and that is what makes DC what it is when it comes to movies. When it comes to movies. That's why we say it's a deeper dive. Okay? So when I hear so-called comic book nerds online talking about that's not my Superman, or he's not following the comics, so-called, because they not, because most of them that talk are not familiar even with DC Comics. They're not even familiar with the comics. Okay? But without rehashing all these things and going over it so many times, I can't believe I'm 21 minutes in already. Without rehashing this whole thing, I'm saying one thing. I'm making a point. The doing, the undoing of DC, and DC's going down the tubes, as even 4K said so correctly in a stream. DC is right now, the brand is at an all-time low. It's at an all-time low. And it can't blame Zack Snyder, because Zack Snyder has not been there. He hasn't been there since 2017. The movie that he made recently that came out in 2021 is a 2017 movie with a little bit of additional stuff. So Zack Snyder has not been, theatrically speaking, at DC for any given point in time. Now, here's the thing I don't understand about a studio. So you can't blame Zack Snyder for what's happening now. Absolutely not. These 6 flops that happen they're a totally different tone. They're a totally different kind of movie to what Zack Snyder was doing. So why on earth would Zack Snyder be affecting that when you decided to go in a completely different direction to what Zack Snyder was doing? That's why I don't even call them DCEU movies. I go with what Jeff Johns said. They're DCU movies. James Gunn just repeated what Jeff Johns said. These DCU movies are supposed to be so-called hopeful, so-called bright, so-called light. And how many times has Warner Brothers been successful with that? You can name how many times they've been successful doing that. It didn't work for Superman. When Richard Donner was there, it worked out initially. Richard Donner was going to go a different direction. He was going to fill out Superman. He was going to give him more dimension. It was going to give him much more filled out story. He introduced him in a bright way, but the story was going to get dark. It was going to get deep. Richard Donner wanted to go with depth with Superman. I was listening to Chuck Dixon, his channel, and he was talking about Superman. Superman doesn't kill, and if he has to go to killing, then he's a stupid Superman. That's a myopic way of thinking. That's a naive way of thinking. Because for Chuck Dixon to say something like that is to say, oh, well, what he's basically saying is we write the story, so we can write whatever we want to write about Superman, and we can make him have a way of figuring it out and having escape. Now, that's one way of approaching things. But the way how Zack Snyder approached Superman, and the way how David Goyer and also Christopher Nolan collaboration approached Superman was the same way how they approached Batman. Batman was in a no-win situation when he had to kill Harvey Dent, who was at the time known as Two-Face. It's in a no-win situation. Superman, when he had to kill General Zod, he was in a no-way situation. That's the reality of the situation. Zack Snyder was giving us a really realistic take on Superman, and it narrowed down his choices so that he could deconstruct Superman, so he could reconstruct Superman. Also give a reasoning why Superman doesn't kill, or he's very hesitant to kill, because he actually killed his own his own people. General Zod was a Kryptonian like himself. Biologically speaking, he had more in common with General Zod than he did with people of Earth. And it tore him to kill the last Kryptonian on Earth besides himself, as far as he knew. It tore him. And so people could see why Superman is so averse to killing. It's the last option for him. So for Chuck Dixon to myopically, short-sightedly, and also very simplistically say, oh, that makes the Superman stupid, after his first day on the job, as if Superman can't mature, he can't grow, he can't develop. It's sad. Doesn't make Superman flawed. Superman's not flawed because he killed General Zod. General Zod was a threat. He was about to kill human beings, so he killed him. Okay? It's not like Superman hasn't killed in the comics before. He's killed many times in the comics. He's adverse to killing. He doesn't want to kill. He killed Doomsday in the comics. The whole Death of Superman comic. It's because he killed Doomsday. He had to. He had no choice. There's nothing else he could do. He can't push Doomsday out into space. And similarly, and that's by Dan Jerkins. Dan Jerkins understood Superman had no other choice. He understands that situation. Now, with respect to these slate of movies that have come out, these 6 DCU movies that have all flopped, and Blue Beetle's going to flop too, even though Zack Snyder, said they're all going to flop. And the reason they're going to flop is not just because James Gunn's fans are not going to support it, because he has fans and they do support his movies, but they're not in big enough numbers to support his movies like that. The other fans that support James Gunn's movies in Marvel and make money are Marvel fans. Okay? So for people to understand this quite clearly, we have some people who are James Gunn fans. I call them Gunts. Okay? And they've come across with James Gunn to DC, but their numbers are not big enough. Neither are the so-called real DC fans and so-called Snyder antis. Their numbers are not big enough to really affect box office in a positive way. This is what's happening. So what you've been doing, Warner Brothers, is you've been appealing to a demographic that can't give you positive box office outcome. Just haven't. And the G is not interested in what's to come, as 4K was saying. Nobody knows who the Authority is. Nobody cares about a Superman solo like that. The Authority is like a Justice League analog. So why would we get rid of the Justice League? We already had the Justice League. Why are we getting rid of that to do this? Why are we even rebooting the universe? We've been asking for you to continue it. The majority of the general audience is like, especially a general audience that has already seen Zack Snyder's Justice League, like, why wouldn't they do a sequel to this? Right? So this is how the general audience is thinking. Meanwhile, Warner Brothers is pitching things that nobody cares about, nobody wants to see. Right? Nobody asked for a Blue Beetle movie. Well, we kind of were interested in it, but we haven't even had a Cyborg movie, but we're talking about Blue Beetle. Like, what the audience wanted was the major characters first. And then you could have all the spin-offs and side characters after. But instead of doing that, now they're just going with side characters and deciding to do these obscure side characters. James Gunn's good at doing obscure characters, so we'll have James Gunn do these, make sure we promote these obscure characters. And that means nothing to us. We don't care about that. And then the thing about it is, there's nothing gripping about these movies, because guess what? Nothing's interesting about the cinematography. Nothing's interesting about the story. And nothing's interesting about the characters. So why would anybody go out to see these characters? Right? Okay, Aquaman's coming at the end of the year. All right? But, like, what does Aquaman have to offer? Nothing. Right? The person who's going to be writing Aquaman, again, same Jeff Johns. So, I mean, we've seen what kind of quality he produced with the first movie. The storyline for Aquaman for the first movie was very thin. It was a thin storyline. There was no meat on the bones whatsoever. It was just entertainment. The first Wonder Woman movie had a lot of meat on the bones, but the Aquaman movie had nothing. Justice League 2017 had nothing, right? The Suicide Squad was again flimsy storyline, and every single DC film since has been flimsy storylines. They're not really putting meat on the bones, right? So I'm 30 minutes in. I'm going to go to about 31, 32, or maybe even 33 minutes. I just wanted to say that Warner Bros. Is doing a serious disservice to the DC brand. You know, there's no other DC movies coming out this year. There's not even a Batman movie to save DC. You know, even Matt Reeves' mediocre Batman movie would, you know, at least do something to make DC look good. But they're not even putting out that. So, you know, it is what it is. I mean, DC right now is in the tubes. And the best thing Warner Brothers could do right at this point in time, and I appeal to Abdi and DeLuca from Warner Brothers, is to put the Snyder Cut out into cinemas globally October this year. October or November this year. The sooner the better. So October is probably the best time. September's right around the corner. So October this year. Put it out. Put it out. You know? That's all I got to say. Christ I am disciple. If you guys enjoyed this video, don't forget you can share it. And I'm gonna come back again tonight so you guys we can chop it up a little bit. I'll talk a little bit more about some other things. But quite frankly, Warner Brothers, you need to stop what you're doing, man. You need to cancel some stuff. You just need to stop it. Because the stuff that you're about to put out, Blue Beetle, I don't care if Zack Snyder was promoting that movie. Nobody's gonna go watch it. Nobody cares about that movie. They don't care about the movie. So the best thing you can do is announce that the Snyderverse is coming back. Best thing you can do is release the Snyder Cut into cinemas globally. Yeah, we know that the movie's been seen, but it's different to seeing it on a big screen than just seeing it on your phone or your tablet or even your television. So hopefully they put it in IMAX as well. Oppenheimer's doing well, and that's good. I went to the cinema to see if I could see Oppenheimer. It's not there. Sound of Freedom, I can't see it on in the cinema. Maybe Sound of Freedom is not that easy to find, so hopefully I can see it. Those were the two movies I wanted to see. In my country, it's still Rise of the Beast. Transformers: Rise of the Beast is still there, so I might go in the cinema and see that, and I'll write a review on it. But I am out of here. Christ I am disciple. Don't compromise yourself. Restore the Snyderverse fans. Don't compromise yourself. Keep the Restore the Snyderverse going and press onwards. Nobody can buy y'all. They can't buy out Zack Snyder and they ain't gonna buy out us. I'm gonna catch you guys later. Peace.